Hello, hi guys, welcome back to the next session of workflow training series and thank you for joining JK tutorials. So guys, in our previous session, we have started the new topic which is container. Okay, we have discussed about basic of containers, what is container. So it's nothing but like variable you can say which are used to create variables in our workflows, same like in our ABAP programming. What we used to do, we used to write a syntax of like data, like for example this is what our we have written. We can give the fixed value to our variable, we can make it importing or exporting parameter also. So that is what all about containers. So I hope this one is clear to everyone guys. So it's all about containers. So in this today's session, as we have this, I told you in the last session, we will discuss about the what are the different types of containers. Okay, so before we start lighting about containers, what are the types of container? Let's first, yeah, containers. So container is just a way of creating variables. Correct. So that is what my container says. What are the different types which we are going to discuss? So there are five types of containers which we are going to discuss. So first type is my task container. Second is my workflow container. Workflow. One second, sorry, workflow container. And my third type is method container. Then my event container, where we will see about BO events, business object events, so object events and class events. Okay, then the fifth and last type is my rule container. So let's discuss about one by one about these guys. Okay. Okay. So firstly, we will discuss about what is my task container. Task container. Container. So guys, this is very important interview question. What are the different types of container? So we can say there are five types of containers. Okay, in workflow, first is my task container, then my workflow container, then my method container, then event container, then at the last we are having our rule container, which will contains the information about the rule. Okay, I hope this one is clear to everyone. All what are the different types? Okay, now let's start with the task container. So guys, in our first session, whenever we create a step in the workflow, it is associated to a task in the background. Before that, let me show you also. Okay, guys, when we was creating a workflow, correct? I have shown you like every step which we are creating is associated to a task. Correct, na? Like which I have shown you. 1 second, let me show you it again. SWTT transaction code. Okay, so this is the only important transaction code. SWTT. Okay. Okay. So what are the different steps, guys? We have created. You can see in this workflow we have created three steps. Please approve my leave request. Okay. Please respond my leave request. Approve it, reject it, or whatever you want to do. So if I will click on this first step, you can see. Okay, in the detail control tab you can see it has created a task. Okay, so that is whatever task container. So it will, so whenever every step is associated with a task, correct? Every step in the workflow is associated to a task in the background, correct? You can see it's 8267. If I will go to the leave request approved and I will go to the, okay, 8267 was there, and here you can see 0024. And if I will go for the rejection case, is 0025. So different tasks for different steps is assigned. Okay, is this clear, guys? I hope this one is clear to everyone. There is no such rocket science in this to understand this. So is this clear? What is this task container? Okay, so it's already created by SAP system. Okay, automatically it is suggested by them. So Let's write something about, so task containers are associated with individual, you can say individual steps, or we can say it as a workflow task. I will tell you in the task, workflow tasks. Okay, it's associated to a individual step, associated with individual workflow steps, correct? So that is what my task containers, what they hold is, they hold some specific data to each task instance instance and are typically used to pass information between steps within a task. Okay, I hope this is clear, guys. So that is what my task containers is. Okay, task containers are created when a task is instantiated. Okay, okay, whenever and are available for the duration of the of that task life cycle, of that step life cycle, we can say, correct? So that is what my task container is. Is this clear, guys? Okay, so this is all about task container. So every step in the workflow, I will write again this one, every step in the workflow is associated to a task. Okay, and what that into a task, and inside that task, whatever can be hold, whatever the data, inside that task, whatever data you want to hold, that can be held inside a task container. Very important, guys. Okay, so whatever data I want to contain inside that, it will hold it. Okay, so that is what about my task container. So if I will tell you about some example about this task container, let's say I just need a data to be held inside only that particular step. For example, I want to store some data only inside a particular step. In that case, I don't want to create a new workflow container, because workflow container will be storing the data for all the states together. I will show you how we will create a workflow container also. Okay, so workflow is like a global container, workflow container is like a global container, but in this case of like just relevant of task data, I can create a container in the task itself, correct? So task container will contain the data, will hold the data until and unless our step is instantiated. Is this clear, guys? Okay, then like you may ask some question like, is it possible to send the data from task container to workflow container? So before that, I will come later on that. Before that, I will let's just discuss me about workflow container. Okay, right here, workflow container, workflow container. Oh, that is also important. Before that, we have to discuss. Sorry. Okay. So what is this workflow container? So workflow container is a container of the workflow level. So it works at the container workflow level, and where this task container works, it works at the step level, correct? So like we have seen in the first session, our example of leave request approval, okay, workflow, where we have created a user decision step, we can create a container element also. So workflow container, if I will write, workflow containers are global to entire workflow instance, correct? They hold data that is accessible across all tasks, across all tasks and uh, steps until the life cycle of the workflow. Correct? I hope this one is clear, guys. So workflow containers are created when the workflow instance starts and persist persist until the workflow ends. So it exists until the our workflow will. And I hope this one is clear, guys. Okay, so that is what my workflow container. So how can we see the workflow element container? I will show you. Wait a minute, guys. We have already seen what is this my task container is, correct? You can see, guys, if you will come here to our SWTD screen, okay. One second, let me go to the, I think it's called logout. One second. Mm, Let me log in again. Wait. SWTD. Okay. So this is my workflow. So how can you see the workflow element container? How can you create it? If you will go there, you can see something known as workflow container. And where we are able to see it, guys, look at the global level. Okay, not over here with respect to every task, every step, which we have seen our like previously only just we have seen on our task container. Okay, so this is my workflow container. Okay, and here if you will choose the workflow container in this particular area, you can create or edit the workflow containers. Correct? If I will double click here, you can see all the containers, all the workflow containers will come here. Correct? If okay, I will put a screenshot also for you, all of you, about. Okay, guys, I hope this one is clear. Where do we create the workflow container? And if I will double click here, you can able to create a workflow container. Let's create for you. Okay, or we will create in our next session. Previously also I have shown you, let's say I will do LVWF command workflow container. I will give here as, let's say, Madnar, or if you will click on F4, you will able to see the different things. I will click on properties. I can make it importing, exporting. Okay, as of now, I am creating it import only. Just I have to click on continue. You will be able to see I have created this LV underscore workflow container over here. This is my workflow container, and up to where it will be accessible? It will be accessible to the overall workflow life cycle. Correct? Until and unless our workflow from here to the workflow end to here to the workflow completed, it will be like accessible. It will hold some data if you will pass some data to there. Correct? So basically, okay, is this clear, guys? So container is a variable. So just like in our ABAP programming, we use data keyword to direct keyword. Okay, define variables for yourself, which you can use as a structure or an internal table or a normal variable in the calculation. Okay, so similarly in the workflow, if you need to hold some data, if you need some variable which can hold some data, which can hold some static value, dynamic value, okay, we can store it inside the containers. And we have seen just now our workflow containers. So that this is all about my workflow containers. Okay, is this clear, guys? I hope this one is clear to everyone. What is this workflow container is? Okay, okay, fine. Okay, so now you may ask some question. So like I've taken it from some other classes, like where some other guys asked me this question when I was teaching them. Like, is it possible to send the data from task container to workflow container from here task container to workflow container, is it possible to send data, or from workflow container to the task container, or sorry, to this steps, is it possible to send data? Yes, it's possible to send the data. So it's possible to send in bidirectional way. You can also send the data from workflow container to task container. Okay, we will see some example of that in our coming up sessions also. Okay, I hope this one is clear, guys. If I have already shown you where is my task container, I will go there to my control tab. You will be able to see my task container over here. Okay. Okay, and we will discuss more about task in our next session, because there is so many things, different things where we can see. And okay, so that's all about my task container. Okay, let's go to the third type of the container. I will go there to my PPT again, drag it small. Task container is clear. Workflow container. Okay, task container and workflow container is clear, guys. Now let's discuss about the method container. What is this method container? Method container. Method container. Okay, so what is this method means, guys? Okay, so let's start with the method container. Normally in our class we are having methods same like it is. Okay, that's you will get to know after this method container. We will be finishing what is method container. So what happens is we can actually associate a method from the workflow. Correct? Method simple, guys. Class method, it's like that only. So we can simply associate a method call from the workflow. We can call a method from the workflow. So for an example, if you want to do some particular action using OPS concept, using OPS ABAP, so in OPS ABAP, we have like things like classes and method. So in particular case, we can go with the method container. So method container will hold all the data that particular method can be, okay, which that particular method will use in order to do the processing. What does I just said? So method container will hold all the data, okay, which will be used in order to do processing. Okay, so that is what my method container is. We will see an example of method container. We will see of getting into an activity area. I will show you just activity area also. I will show you. So till then, this is what my method container. Just guys, give me a second. Yeah, guys, sorry. So method containers, we'll write here. Method container holds the method parameters, okay, which are uh, which are which are used for information exchange between the caller of a method and the method, from where the method is called and where the method is written. Okay, so at runtime, limit. At runtime, parameters are passed to the method, which are known as importing parameter, and whatever the value we are getting from there, that is my export parameters. Okay, is this clear, guys? So the method container is called when the binding from the method to the single step task is called. Okay. So I will show you guys, okay? And this in the real-time scenario method container, we will discuss more about that. Okay. Now let's go with the next type. What is our next type? So next type is my event container. Correct? Now next is my rule container. So what is my rule container is? What is a rule? Okay. As we have discussed in our first class also, every workflow step can have possibly a user also into it who will be receiving the work item. Correct? We have seen. One second, let me do this. So, tool container. Okay. So we have seen like in our business workplace, we was getting some work item. So in every workflow, this will be the same scenario. When it's a small scenario, or even it's a complex scenario, that these are some basic which will be followed all over the workflow. Okay, so when a task gets executed in the workflow, a work item gets generated. So that is nothing but a runtime instance of a task, and work item will be placed in the user's inbox. In case of workflow, the users are called as agents. So there are different ways of assigning agents to a particular task. So we will be discussing that in details in our coming up session. So there we will explain more. I will explain you more about the possibility of the rule container. So using the way of rule, you can actually assign the agents to a task. Okay, so that so at that time we will discuss about the rule container. Okay, so we will discuss more about the rule container. So simply you can see whenever a workflow is executed, a work item is created. So look, we have seen like only for a particular, only for we have written there something a wf initiator, only for a specific what is that, I will tell you. Only in my work item, only that work item was coming. Okay, so we can write some rules, so we can see different things where it may go into the different agents, different things that we will discuss more. Okay, so at the last we are having this event container. Okay, so what is this event container? Okay, sorry. So and in the like, okay guys, so in the event container, eh, event container, so there are like two types of events over there. One is business object event and another is class events. So event containers, I will write here, event containers hold data, all the data related to events triggered within the workflow. Okay, when an event is raised or triggered, data associated with the event can be stored in the event containers for the further processings. Okay, so event containers are typically used to pass data. Event containers are used to pass data between event handler and and workflow tasks. Yes, yes. Okay. So whenever workflow is triggered by an event, the event can be sent some data to the workflow, and that data can be utilized by our workflow to process the data. Is this clear, guys? For example, let's say whenever our company has a scenario where a material is created, and if the material is like a radioactive material, I need approval or from some of my senior management to store that data in the plant. So in that case, what I need to do is like I need to set an event or material business object which is created. So whenever a material is triggered, I will trigger the workflow. So in that workflow, I will pass the material ID, which is the my unique ID of the workflow. So the workflow will get to know is the material which gets created just now. That can be only be possible when I have an event. With that event, I have a parameter called which is known as material ID. So the workflow can receive the material ID and the processing based on that material code. So all this is very, it's very like no very systematic process, and we will see some different examples also in our coming up session. So in that case we will see why this event container is important. Okay, so I hope these all five types are clear to everyone. Okay, so if someone will come up and ask you a question, what are the different types of container, how many types of container, so you can say like there are five types of container, and you can tell them these all of these five names. Okay, okay, I hope this one is clear to everyone. Fine, guys. Okay, we have cleared this task container, workflow container, my method container. We have seen rule container. Okay, you will say, let's say write something about rule container. So rule container, you can say contains, what it will contain, contains only additional data from the workflow. Okay, that you need, that we need for our on send procedure. Okay, so for our like personal use, or you can say contain some different additional data from the workflow. So that is what my rule container is. Okay, so in rule container we can specify the basic data of each rule, such as the condition under which the rule is invoked. Okay, we can specify how a notification is sent and how the list of recipients is sent. So that is what all about my rule container. Okay, then we have seen our event container. Okay, so it also holds some data related to the events triggered within the workflows. Okay, it is clear, everyone. I hope this is a good session for everyone. So hope you enjoyed this session. And guys, thank you for joining. Have a good day. Bye bye. See you soon.